Hi, we hope you are healthy and safe. Because of this pandemic, we are forced to do almost all of our work and social interactions on the internet. This makes us extremely vulnerable to many cybercrimes. In this video, we will be discussing two of the most common cybercrimes, phishing and cyberstalking. This video would also cover how you can protect yourself from these crimes and what you can do if you are a victim of these crimes. Derived from the word fishing with an F, fishing is like its original word in the way that there is a hook, a bait, and you essentially are the fish. The hook can be an SMS, a WhatsApp message, a call, or an email which lures you in, while the bait could be a lottery, income tax refund, a job, or even a free COVID vaccine. Generally, a phishing campaign tries to get the victim to either hand over sensitive information or download malware. These messages aim to trick the user into revealing important data, often a username or password that the attacker can use to breach a system or an account. The classic version of this scam involves sending out an email tailored to look like a message from a major bank. By spamming out message to millions of people, the attacker ensures that at least some of these recipients would be customers of that bank. The victim clicks on a link in the message and is taken to a malicious site designed to resemble the bank's web page and then hopefully enters their username and password. The attacker can now access the victim's account. Like a lot of spam, these types of phishing emails aim to get the victim to infect their own computer with malware. Often the messages are soft targeted. They may be sent to an HR staffer with an attachment that purports to be a job seeker's resume, for instance. These attachments are often zip files or Microsoft Office documents with malicious embedded code. Once downloaded, the computer system or the device becomes hacked and is now accessible to the attacker. So according to the way in which the bait is given, phishing can be of three types. Email phishing, that is the bait is sent via email. Smishing or SMS phishing, that is it is sent via a text message. And vishing, that is when the attacker tries to procure information via a phone call. According to the type of the target, phishing can be classified as spear phishing, whale phishing, and angler phishing. I will discuss more about these at a later stage. Mentioned here are some typical smishing text messages. For instance, is this really a picture of you? And then you can see there's a link attached. Or your Apple ID is due to expire. And then again, you can see that there's a link attached, which prompts the user to go to that link. Or here, wherein a gift card is mentioned. And again, another link is given there. So the information in these messages is such that the receiver of the message, out of curiosity, would most probably click on those links, and then either their device can become compromised or those links can lead them to malicious websites wherein they end up giving a lot of their information. In the case of vishing, the attacker tries to persuade people to share information by posing as bank staff or other financial service employees. People end up trusting them and they go on and share their personal information such as personal identification number or an important OTP. Using this information, the attacker then gets access to their bank accounts. Phishing is a type of phishing wherein a specific individual or an organization is targeted, unlike in phishing wherein the bait is sent in bulk. Phishers identify their targets and used spoofed addresses to send emails that could plausibly look like they're coming from co-workers. For instance, the spear phisher might target someone in the finance department and pretend to be the victim's manager requesting a large bank transfer on short notice. Social media such as LinkedIn and Twitter provide insight into roles, responsibilities, and professional relationships within an organization, and thus help inform who is best to both target and impersonate. Company websites might provide insight into processes, suppliers, and technology, while the likes of Facebook and Instagram might provide personal insight into potential targets that could be leveraged. Fraudsters make use of background information in order to create a credible narrative. The goal of spear phishing is to gain access to corporate banking information and other sensitive information to facilitate further fraud. Spear phishing emails are quite hard to detect because they are so targeted. They look like normal business emails with normal business content, so it's really hard for spam detection systems to realize it's not a genuine email. Spear phishers exploit that because you don't want spam protection blocking genuine emails as end users get frustrated and business processes start to fall down. Criminals might spend time building up the reputation of IP addresses and email domains by sending legitimate traffic and emails for a time to ensure they avoid blocking lists. The effectiveness of spear phishing also comes down to the human element and the fact that they contain a heavy element of social engineering that plays on how people think and act. Trust is a natural and beneficial part of the human psyche. It is an innate and necessary part of forming relationships. It is this ingrained capacity for trust which fishers like to abuse. People are significantly more likely to comply with requests from authority and trusted figures. Written with enough personalization, with the right tone, and with the right message, spear phishing is incredibly difficult to spot. A high degree of personalization dramatically increases the trustworthiness of emails. The more personal information is present in an email, the more likely a victim is to believe that the email is authentic. Whaling is a subset of spear phishing. In whaling, high-level executives are targeted. The name whaling is used here to denote the fact that the bigger the target, the bigger the problems. The goal is to retrieve high-level credentials to company accounts, company secrets, etc. Common whaling targets, such as media spokespersons or C-level executives, by nature have more information about them that is publicly available for attackers to gather and exploit. Due to their seniority, they may also have greater internal data access than the average employee. They have more confidential information available to them via their internal credentials, and in some and most cases, they might even have some level of administrative privilege. While the pool of potential targets for whaling at one organization might be quite small compared to the overall employee, the stakes are much higher. Here are some tips to protect yourself from such phishing attacks. Check the domain name or the number of the sender. Legitimate companies have domain emails. Don't just check the name of the person sending you the email. Check their email address by hovering your mouse over the from address. Make sure that no alterations have been made. Generally, alterations such as additional numbers or letters are mentioned in the email, which gives away that they are fraudulent in nature. The next step is to check for any spelling mistakes or grammatical errors in either the domain name or the content of the email. Possibly the easiest way to recognize a fraudulent email is bad grammar. An email from a legitimate organization should be well written. It is a little known fact that there's actually a purpose behind bad syntax, grammar, and spellings. Hackers generally prey on the uneducated, believing them to be less observant and thus easier targets. The next step is to check what sort of a message is being conveyed. If the message being conveyed feels too good to be true or causes unnecessary urgency, there are high chances that the email or text is fraudulent. Check if the mail or message includes any suspicious attachment or links. Chances are, if you receive an unsolicited email from an institution that provides a link or attachment and asks you to provide sensitive information, it's a scam. Most companies will not send you an email asking for passwords, credit card information, credit scores, or tax numbers, nor will they send you a link from which you need to log in. Lastly, And the most important point is, please do not share any sensitive information such as your personal identification numbers or OTPs on the phone. Please do not store any sensitive personal information in your phone, such as your credit card or debit card details, your passwords, your OTPs. Please don't store any of these in your phone because your phone is liable to be hacked. If you're not able to identify any fishy emails or texts or calls, your phone can be easily hacked. It is better to err on the side of precaution and not store any such information, which makes us vulnerable. If you do somehow become a victim of such online fraud, the first and foremost thing is to write down in detail the nature of the crime and the losses incurred due to it. Copies of this written incident report should be given to the bank when filing a complaint and also to the nearest police station when filing a first information report, ensuring that an acknowledgement is received from both the parties. In case money has been transferred from your account to a mule account, do not panic, but immediately rush to the nearest branch of your bank and speak to the branch manager. Force upon them the emergency of the situation and ask them to freeze the mule account immediately. After you've done that, change all your passwords and accounts where changing the personal identity number is possible. Monitor your finances, credit, and various online accounts for strange login locations and other devices, and report them to the police station as soon as you can. If you're not a victim, but you come across phishing websites or emails, please send them to the mentioned hyperlink, that is cybercrime.gov.in. Reporting on these sites does not mean that a police complaint or an FIR is registered. These sites only forward your incident report to the nearest police station, from where it becomes a responsibility of that particular station to allocate resources and investigate the crime. This will only help in increasing awareness of the public and to prevent any more people from becoming victims from those links, emails, or messages.
So, cyberstalking can take many different forms. However, in the broadest sense, it is stalking or harassment that takes place via online channels such as social media, forums, or email. It is typically planned and sustained over a period of time. Cyberstalking doesn't have to involve direct communication, and some victims may not even realize they are being stalked online. Perpetrators can monitor victims through various methods and use the information gathered for crimes like identity theft. In some cases, the line between cyberspace and real life can become blurred. Attackers can collect your personal data, contact your friends, and attempt to harass you offline. Cyberstalking can take place in various forms, which include harassment, embarrassment, and humiliation of the victim, emptying bank accounts or other economic control, such as ruining the victim's credit score, harassing family, friends, and employers to isolate the victim, scare tactics to instill fear, and more. Anyone can be a victim of cyber stalking. However, females are more likely to become victimized than males. Education institutions are also very likely to be the target of cyber stalking. These are where cyber stalking occurs. Email. The cyber stalker sends email to the victim that may be threatening, alarming, or anything of a harassing nature. This is the most commonly used form of cyber stalking. News groups and message boards. In this type of cyber stalking, the offender posts threatening statements that are directed towards a specific group of people or an individual. Internet. The offender can post very alarming or threatening comments to a website. The cyberstalker could also create a website that contains defamatory, personal, and degrading things about a person. Chat room. In this form, The offender has the capability to send threatening material directly to the victim and anyone else in the chat room who is allowed to view it. Third party instant messages. In this form of cyberstalking, the offender has a software that tracks the victim, logs onto a messenger service, and then proceeds to harass the victim in real time.
Legal provisions on cyberstalking and online harassment. Section 354D of the Indian Penal Code, which was added by the Criminal Law Amendment Act in 2013, specifically prescribes the act of stalking as whoever follows a person and contacts or attempts to contact such person to foster personal interaction repeatedly despite a clear indication of disinterest by such person, or whoever monitors the use by a person of the internet, email, or any other form of electronic communication, or watches or spies on a person in a manner that results in a fear of violence or serious alarm or distress in the mind of such person, or interferes with the mental peace of such person, commits the offense of stalking. The victim can also additionally file a case of defamation under Section 499 of IPC against the offender. This section has bailed out those acts of stalking which are performed for the purpose of preventing and detecting crime by a person who has been entrusted with such responsibility by the state. Also, instances where pursuing such conduct was reasonable or where the person was authorized under any act cannot allude to this offense of stalking. Section 354A of IPC punishes offense of sexual harassment with 3 years of imprisonment and or fine. Section 354C criminalizes the offense of voyeurism. This section prescribes 3 years of imprisonment for the first conviction and 7 years of imprisonment on second conviction along with fine. Section 507 punishes criminal intimidation by an anonymous communication with a term which may extend to 2 years of imprisonment. Vengeful posting of images or videos of rape victims is punishable with imprisonment which may extend to 2 years and fine under Section 228A of IPC. Section 500 of the IPC deals with defamation. This can be applied in case of cyberstalking in India if the stalker forges the victim's personal information to post an obscene message or comment on any electronic media. Section 500 criminalizes publishing any false statement against a person on harming the person's reputation and provides punishment for any such act with imprisonment up to 2 years, fine, or both. Section 67 of the Information Technology Act states that when any obscene material is published, transmitted, or caused to be published in any electronic form, then it is a crime of obscenity punishable with imprisonment for up to 5 years with fine or up to 1 lakh. A second or a subsequent conviction is punishable by imprisonment for up to 10 years with a fine of up to 2 lakhs. If any person is publishing or sending any salacious material in the form of electronic media, it is to be charged under Section 67 of the Act. This does not involve the determination of the extent of liability. Section 43A is added for the inclusion of a body corporate, allowing of the compensation in case of a firm or a company which causes any wrongful losses or gain to any person by the way of transmitting any sensitive information and the maintenance of such type of security. Such body corporate shall be liable to pay damages by the way of compensation. To prevent cyberstalking, you should keep a low profile. In an ideal world, you would avoid using your real name in online profiles. While this is difficult for anything work related, it is quite feasible for things like forums, message boards, and certain social media accounts. For example, you can use a nickname or any other name. If you must maintain a real name and photo, be very careful about who you accept connection requests and messages from. If it's not a friend, relative, or colleague, do some checks and verifications before moving forward. Secondly, update your software. Keeping your software up to date may not be the first thing that springs to your mind, but regular software updates are crucial when it comes to preventing information leaks. Many updates are developed to patch security vulnerabilities and help ensure your information remains safe. You should hide your IP address. Many applications and services reveal your IP address to the person with whom you're communicating. This may seem unimportant, but this information is directly related to your personal data. For example, your IP address is linked to the internet bill that is sent to your home, which you pay with your credit card. Cyberstalkers can begin with your IP address and use it to find your credit card data and physical address. To mask your IP address, you may use a virtual private network. This hides your real IP address and replaces it with a location of your choice. You should maintain a good digital hygiene. By this, I mean adjusting your privacy settings. This is the first step you can take to clean up your accounts. Most social media platforms and some other types of online accounts will let you adjust who can see your profile and who can contact you. You should avoid disclosing sensitive information. By filling out questionnaires or submitting applications for coupons, you are increasing the likelihood of someone getting their hand on your personal data and possibly making cyberstalking more accessible. So, without verifying the website and the person, please do not share your sensitive information. You must password protect all accounts and try to keep a different password for every account. If you have the same password for each account, then it becomes easier for the hacker. Never give out your bank details without proper verification. If you feel that you're being targeted, have your PC checked by a professional. The first ever complaint against cyberstalking in India was filed by Ritu Kohli in 2003. Her name and contact information was posted by her husband's friend on a chatting site without her permission. She filed a complaint with the Cyber Cell in India under Section 509 of the IPC for outraging her modesty. Here are a few measures to be taken in case you're being cyberstalked. Firstly, you must block the person. Don't hesitate to apply all measures permitted by law, especially those offered by the web services. You must block the person who you feel is cyberstalking you. Then you must report it to the platform involved. You should report the problem and the person to the platform involved. If someone is harassing you or threatening you, you should block them immediately and report their behavior to the platform involved. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and many other platforms have created easy to use buttons to quickly report abusive behavior. Then you must call the police. If you believe the behavior is illegal or you fear for your safety, then you should contact the police and report the cyberstalker if needed. Even if you don't have enough information or evidence for them to prosecute immediately, the report will go on record and the police can offer advice about what to do if the perpetrator persists. For minimizing the damage, you must reduce the amount of information available about you online, increase the amount of fake information about you that will mislead an attacker. Cyberstalking is a big problem, but it is easier to prevent it than to try to solve it and eliminate the consequences. Fortunately, law enforcement agencies, security professionals, and social media platforms are on your side and are ready to provide you with useful tools and methods for your protection.